Are you looking for? Then it is the right place to know about this product, and I ensure you that you will happy to see this video. Watch carefully till the end. The iPhone SE still has an audience. Holding out against its big screen siblings, this 4-inch handset continues to offer a compact, one-handed use guarantee no other current iPhone can muster. Key features: all the power of a larger iPhone in a smaller chassis. Camera is strong, on a par with the iPhone XS. Lack of 3D touch is disappointing and would have worked well here. Battery life is significantly longer than iPhone 5/5s. Besides price, the key selling point with this phone is the design. The chassis is precisely the same as on the iPhone 5 and iPhone 5s, and beyond coming in rose gold, doesn't offer anything new at all. That said, so many people are looking at the iPhone's evolution to the 4.7-inch display of the 6, SIXS, 7, and 8, not to mention the move to the X and XS, and scrunching their noses up a bit, not wanting to make the leap to the larger size of screen, and that's before we even get to the iPhone XS Max. iPhone SE review. Compare that to the A7 chip with a measly 1GB of RAM from the iPhone 5s, and side by side they're absolutely night and day in terms of speed and battery life management. Though of course newer models like the iPhone XS well and truly crush this for power, but at a much higher price. The M9CO processor is an important element too, telling the phone when it should be heading into a dormant mode thanks to being sat quietly on a desk or in a pocket, which prevents the battery-hungry pings that lead to the red line of doom and you needing to reach for the charger at 6 p.m. Battery life is impressive on the phone, especially when you consider there are only a few mAh added in here, from 1,560 mAh to 1,624 mAh. And with no increase to the size of the chassis at all, this is a really impressive feat and addresses one of the key concerns we had with the iPhone 5s. In our testing though, it was a mixed bag. While it's hard to truly remember how much battery I used to get through on an average day with the iPhone 5s, we do remember it being rather terrible a lot of the time. It regularly be down to 20% by the evening when leaving work, enough to be in the red zone at times, which was a terrible performance for any phone, let alone a top-end flagship handset. The good news is the iPhone SE is much more capable, but then again, you'd expect that from a phone that's had 2 years of development, a leaner operating system and the M9CO processor, all to ease the strain on the troubled power unit. That said, it's fairly easy to run it down quickly, with some days seeing me need to switch on low power mode early at 35% to make sure I made it through the day. It's fair to say these are the higher usage days, with things like tethering an iPad and a couple of hours of video watching at full brightness in the mix, but the new glut of flagship handsets are all capable of easily lasting a day with such pressure put on the battery life, and it puts the performance of the iPhone SE into the spotlight. You'd think the above scenario, where watching video at such a high brightness, would be the obvious reason of the battery diminishing so much. Nope, not in this case. While a trip into the battery settings tries to tell me that video is the biggest battery guzzler out there, the phone was charged to 100% at 10:30 a.m., a 90-minute full HD video was run at full brightness and the iPhone SE was left on a desk. How to improve your iPhone battery life? Watch the video below. It only dropped 20% in that time, and while that's far from the best performance we've seen, the iPhone SE managed a score that's slightly above average, which is a damningly good result for an iPhone. So why did it need such massaging come 18.00 that evening? It seems that, despite the CO processor trying to manage down battery life, the iPhone is still a bit chatty when it comes to battery consumption, pinging a little bit here and there and gradually dribbling down. However, we're keen to reiterate that this was a heavy day on the phone. Over the time we've had with it, it's generally been capable of lasting more than long enough for me to not get annoyed. If you're upgrading to this phone from the iPhone 5 or 5s, you'll be in dreamland with the battery life, trust us. 12MP sensor, the equal of iPhone SIXS. Heavy focus on realism in snaps. Picture quality seems a little muted at times. Smaller and less sharp screen not as useful as a viewfinder. The 12MP camera on the iPhone SE is a marked upgrade from that in the 5s or 5 in a number of ways, not just the boost in megapixels. It's imbued with all manner of fancy technology that you just wouldn't have found on the earlier models, and, in fact, is another perfect example of Apple giving iPhone SE users the same toys as found on the larger SIXS. Firstly, the 12MP sensor comes with focus pixels, which are a secondary layer within the camera that works out what the phone is being pointed at and sharpens things up rather quickly. It's not the best in the industry, but it's more than quick enough, and if you've got a millisecond to hold the camera steady, you'll generally get a sharp snap each time. Writing an iPhone review is different to other handsets. You're generally writing for an audience that has little interest in comparable Android phones as they're locked into the ecosystem, and price is generally less of an issue too, with users prepared to pay more to get the iPhone. So with that in mind, has Apple made the perfect iPhone for the niche of people that have been holding off buying a bigger handset for as long as possible? We liked. The iPhone SE's biggest draw is its size, and we know, that's obvious. But if it weren't for the fact it's so easily operated one-handed, it would be impossible to see why Apple made this phone at all. The smaller size definitely feels great in the hand and the pocket, and whether you're slipping it into a bag, a running armband, or just holding it gripped while walking along, it's a much more palatable design. Obviously the power the SE's been imbued with is impressive too, and considering the amount of grunt Apple's managed to stick into the smaller phone, we're surprised it doesn't run hotter or have a poorer battery life. While it's not industry leading, it's an iPhone with a good battery life, which many will love. It's not as good at holding battery as other iPhones for watching media, but it's a step forward over the 5s generally. The camera is powerful and sharp too. Again, for the upgraders out there, they'll be astounded by the changes. Our friend recently couldn't stop taking side-by-side pictures with the SE and an old 5, such was the difference. We disliked. The design of the phone isn't iconic, it's dated. There's no reason Apple couldn't have created a smaller version of the iPhone SIXS other than saving money. While that cost has been passed on to the consumer, it would have been amazing to see a new phone in this space. The screen technology is what irritates me the most, and yes, we know it's a price trade-off. But, bar some small tweaks, this is a very similar display to what we saw on the iPhone 5 from 2012. Nearly 4 years old at launch, and it's being reused here, and it's how things look on the screen that matters. It's adequate, but compared to other phones you can get for the price, and we know, they're a lot less wieldy, the difference is marked. Whatever you do, don't look at the iPhone SE's screen than some of the expensive phones on the market right now, i.e. the iPhone XS. You'll be a bit sad. Verdict: with the iPhone SE, Apple's fixed a big problem: price. Given the internals on offer here, this would have been close to a perfect phone if it weren't for a few glaring omissions. Firstly, we needed a new design for this to be seen as the next step in the 4-inch phone cycle. And it's not like Apple doesn't have a perfectly brilliant design just waiting there to be retooled: rounded edges combined with a more palm-friendly shape. Man, that would have been amazing. The screen also had to be better for this to be seen as a brilliant phone. It's fine, and in some instances still looks sharp. But compared to the rest of the market, it's been left behind. But then again, Apple needed to make some savings to keep its high margins on the iPhone, and this was clearly one of those. The cost of making those screens is reportedly a lot lower than it was a few years ago as processes have improved. Will the iPhone SE pull in any Android users fed up with having to wrap their hands around devices they consider too big? Actually, yes, such is the clamor I hear from people not wedded to any particular brand for a phone that I can use one-handed. There are two ways of looking at this phone from Apple. On the one hand, it's the perfect 4-inch phone, coming with so much power, a great camera and improved battery life, all wrapped in Apple's well-crafted iPhone chassis and delivering true simplicity with iOS. We know that combination will have people falling over themselves to buy the phone. On the other hand, it's just 2011's design revised and a new engine put inside. Far from being a new phone, it's the iPhone 5SS, another iteration on an old design, but one that's a lot cheaper to buy. It's also got a much smaller screen, where it's proved that larger displays are the popular choice now, with apps in particular making use of the extra space. Ultimately, Apple's given consumers a great choice here, and actually for a half-decent price. The iPhone SE is a brilliant phone for those that want something smaller in their pocket and don't care about tired design, and we suspect there will be quite a few of those buyers out there.